What's going on, boys? Norguides here. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video we're going to go over the player lock, a method that allows you to control a player off the ball where you can move into key pivotal positions and you can request the ball. It sounds a bit complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to show you some examples at the end to show you how it all works. And it's very much used in a pro scene. It's very effective to move a player into position that you can't otherwise do by manual movement. So to do the player lock is actually quite simple. All you want to do is you press the L3 and the R3 button in together at the same time, as you can see on the screen, and you activate that red cursor above the player's head. Now what this means is that effectively you could at this point pass the ball, and then with the player that's actually selected, you can basically make a run into any direction that you want to, and then you can request the ball back to your feet. That is one way. Or the second way, which is probably a bit more known, is you press the L3 and R3 button in, you get the red cursor above your head, and then you can basically move that cursor to anyone on the pitch, move them into a position, and then request the ball after. So it's very effective in both ways. There's other ways you can do it as well, but these are the two main ways. I'm going to go through how to do it, how it works, and of course how you can use it inside the game. So now the basics out of the way, let's go really into it. So when you press the L3 and R3 button together, you'll activate the player lock. If it doesn't work, you may have to go into your controller settings and make sure you got the player lock feature enabled. But most of the time you should get the normal red cursor above the head, then changes into this shape. And what this effectively means is now the player that has the red cursor above their head, you can basically at this point maneuver this player to go anywhere on the pitch. So let's say, for example, here you can see I use my right analog stick and I want to switch to this player. I can literally flick the right analog stick into that direction and I can choose that player. Now what happens at this point is that means the player that is selected, I can basically move them anywhere on the pitch just with the left analog stick. So if I want to run down the wing, if I want to run inside the box, I can then go ahead and do that. So what happens to the player that has the ball? Well, AI controls them. And what that means is they basically run in a straight line, or they basically run towards goal, but AI controls them. So sometimes you might see them do animations. You can't really control this. AI controls it. But what you can do is you can request the ball. So let's say, for example, if you want to make a through ball or you want to make a pass, you can literally press that on your controller and the player that has the ball will pass the ball to the player that's got the red cursor above their head. Does that make sense? So basically what you're doing with the player lock is you're selecting a player off the ball, moving them into a position, and then you can request the ball, whether that's by a normal X or A pass, or that's a Y or a triangle pass, or through ball, and you can effectively move into a key position and then get the ball. And once the ball is then being played, the game just then defaults back to normal red cursor, and then you can select that player normally as you would like to. So it's very effective to go into positions. What I'll do is I'll walk through some examples and show you how it works, some in-game examples, because that's the best way of depicting how it really works and showing some in-game examples of how effective it can be. Okay, I'm going to run through a couple of examples to show you how it all works in game. So as you can see over here, I get the ball to a normal player. Now, I'm going to let it play on first just so you can see what happens. I use a player lock, I switch the ball to Sun, and then I request the through ball, and I end up then scoring a goal. So we're going to go back and we're going to break this down for you. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I did. So what happened is there's going to be a couple of things that I talk about that will be unrelated to the clip, but it will also help you to gain a bit of understanding why I did it. So as you can see over here, in this situation, I want Sun to make a run in behind. So you can use the L1 button to send a player to make a run going forward. You can see this on another video on the masterclass series. But in this situation, Sun makes a run going forward. Now, when he makes a run, or let's say he's got the get in behind instruction in the tactics, he just makes a run into any direction. If I want to make him make a run into a specific direction, then I use the player lock. So what I do basically, I'm going to slow this down for you to a fraction of the speed to 0.2, and I'll walk you through exactly what happens. So first of all, if I want Sun to make a run, I have to hold the L3 and press the L3 and R3 button inwards. You see that? And that brings that kind of kite shape above the player's head. That's what I was talking about earlier. So that's the key differential. As you can see right now, it's a triangle. And then once I get the ball, make sure you have possession of the ball. You have to do this only when you have possession of the ball. So as you can see, watch. I'm going to pause at exactly when I use the L3 and R3 buttons. So you see here, I press the L3 and R3 button inwards. I'm getting ready to do it, and I do it now. That means the cursor above my head then changes. You see that? it changed the hexagon shape. So the question you're going to ask is, well, how did I then switch to Sun? So what you do is use the right analog stick to basically choose the player, just like player switching when you're defending. So when you press the L3 and R3 button, you engage the player lock. That is the first step. So you can see here on the controller, L3, R3, and I press inwards, I engage player lock. And what that means is when I do that, the icon then changes above the player's head. Now I can, in theory, change to any single person. I can change to this person, I can change to basically anyone. And the way that I do that is I flick the right analog stick. So let's say, for example, if I want to select this player, I flick the right analog stick to the right hand side, because that's obviously to the right hand side of the player. In this situation, Sun is in front of me, so I flick the right analog stick where? I flick it to the left hand side, so I can then switch to Sun. So what I do is I do the player lock, and then I flick the right analog stick to the left hand side, and as you can see, Sun then is in complete control. So I'm going to rewind it just one more time, just so I can show you in real time, because I do it quite quickly. But you have to be quite quick when you do this, because if you take too long, someone can tackle you with the ball. So you've got to be very, very quick when you do this. So you can see here, when I get the ball back, instantly I get the ball. I then make a normal pass going forward. And as you can see here, where I get the ball with Llorente, I then make a pass to my cam or to anyone that's forward. Once I get the ball to that player, I then see Sun. I press the L3 and R3 button. You see the control at the bottom. I press the L3, R3 button. Then I flick the right analog stick immediately to the bottom left, and I control Sun. Now with Sun, I can basically do anything. I can basically run anywhere on the pitch. I can run down here, and if I want to request the ball, all I have to do basically is press X or A. Now you can do any form of pass. You can do a driven through ball, you can do a driven pass, you can do a lob through ball, a lofted through ball. You can do any single form of action that's a passing move if you want to request the ball. But what that means is that this player, so you're controlling this player now, and now AI is controlling this player. Now this is why you have to be very careful. Try to do in an area where there is no one in contention, because as you can see, the player close to me, there is a big chance he could tackle me. So you can see over here, AI is controlling the ball. I basically run into the direction, and then once I find it's a key, so for example like here, Sun, I'm running and running. As you can see, AI is controlling that player. I'm not controlling him. Sometimes AI pushes the ball forward and tries to beat the man. So as you can see, AI assists me a little bit, but then once I want the ball, as you can see here, I realize I want a through ball into the space to make a through ball, and then behind, I press the triangle button and I can request the ball. And as you can see, the kite shape then changes into a triangle as soon as my player comes in contact with the ball, and that means now I'm controlling the player normally, and then you can just play on as you want to. That way you can control a player off the ball and move them into a key position. And as you can see here, I simply finish the ball off, and that's an example of how you can use the player lock. So here's another quick example. So you can see here I got the ball around Bissaka. Now what I can see, there's a player, as you can see on the radar, that I want to control. Now I can't see him visually, but I know on the radar, if you can see on the radar, he is over here. So I do the exact same methodology. So when I get the ball over there, I want to slow it down for you so you can see it again. So here I get the ball with Wan-Bissaka. I see the player on the radar, and I press the L1, but I press the L3. I press the L1 button originally to make players make runs going forward. That's completely unrelated. Then I press the L3 and R3 button in. I flick the right analog stick to the right hand side. I select that player. As you can see, I'm running with him, and then I request a through ball. And that way I can run into that specific area, and that is where one of the key areas to use the player lock is when you want to make a pass down the wing, because you can move that player into that key position as opposed to them just running forward. Now the second way it can be used, as I was briefly saying in the beginning, is you can actually have the ball carrier become the player lock as well. And what that means is, like for example like here, when I've got the ball with this player, I press the L3 and R3 button in together, and that player's now got the cursor above their head. Now, instead of switching to a player that I want to, what I do instead is I pass the ball. So when you do an action with the person that's got the player lock on the ball, what effectively happens is that the action happens, for example, like here I made a pass, but now I'm controlling still the player that I made a pass with. Do you see that? Then I can run into a key position, and then I can request the ball. So as I said to you in the beginning, you can basically, I said to you on a more simpler terms, is that you could basically switch to any player. But what you can also do is the L3 and R3 button with the ball carrier, and then you can, for example, make a pass to anyone you want, and then you can run into a key position. Again, now in this situation, I'm controlling the ball carrier, and then now when I'm running with him, as soon as I made the pass, I'm still controlling him, and AI is now controlling this player, so I can run into a key position like before as well. And then once I'm in a key position like here, especially down the wing, icon request in this situation, a driven through ball, and the exact same thing applies. And as you can see, so effective to beat the man. And then once I get the ball on my feet, I then return to a normal game playing state. And that's one of the most effective ways of using the player lock method to get in behind. And just one final quick example, I would say just do practice. It does take some time, but just make sure when you have the ball carry on the ball, for example, like here, make sure you got a lot of space. Example, like here, I got a lot of space. I press the L3 and R3 button in together. I then flick the right mouse to the left hand side and then select that player. And as you can see, because I got so much space on the ball, I can then run into direction. And also you can use on a higher level deception, so you can pretend to pass to a player and then you can press the L3 and R3 button to actually cancel it. So what you could effectively do, for example, is with this player, I can run into this region, then press L3 plus R3 again. And when I press L3 plus R3 again, the player lock cancels and it returns to the player that actually has the ball. So these are more things that you can do on the advanced level, but don't forget, it just takes some practice. Just practice it out, but just make sure you don't overuse this. Use it here and then, now and then when a situation calls for it, but don't just use it every single time. The key thing is to have a basic good play and incorporate it when you need to confuse your opponent. Anyways, that is a player lock. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial.